So this is the app that we're going to be building in today's video, a GIPHY clone. And if you know about GIPHY, it's used for downloading, sharing, and searching GIFs. So for example, you can see we have a lot of GIFs over here. If I search cats, you can see we have a bunch of different cat GIFs over here. We can also search stickers related to cats, text GIFs, and even we have a lot of categories over here. And if you click on over here, you can see all of the categories. Let's say if I click on anime, we have all of the anime GIFs right over here. And you can see the beautiful UI that we have built over here. And if I click on any one of these GIFs, let's say this one, we can see the name of that GIF, the source of that GIF, and if we further scroll down, we can see more related GIFs as well. Like for example, this was for Full Metal Alchemist, so we can see more Full Metal Alchemist GIFs right over here. We can also favorite our GIFs, and you can see we have this favorite tabs now where we can explore all of our favorite GIFs. And one thing that you may have noticed, if I go back to the home page, you can see we have all of the GIFs over here, right? But you can see this is not a normal grid or flexbox layout. And this layout is called man-seri layout, which you may have seen in websites like Pinterest and also GIPHY. And we will see how we can create this layout by using Tailwind CSS, which is a very popular CSS library. So I've opened VS Code over here, and let's quickly go on and initialize a new React app. So I'll open my terminal and say npm create wheat at latest. And what this will do, it will create a brand new wheat app inside of this folder. First of all, it will ask us the name of the folder or the project name. I'm just gonna keep it dot because I want the project to be created in this directory over here. And I'll use React with JavaScript. And yeah, you can see it was that fast. And now I'm gonna say npm install so that it installs all the dependencies inside of this package.json file like React, React DOM, etc. And now meanwhile that is happening, that is installing this React app, I'm gonna go and set up our Hostinger account where we will be hosting our app. So if you see, I've hosted this app on roadsidecoder.in, and I'll show you how you can get your own domain and you can host your app as well. So click the first link in the description down below and you will land on this page right here. And you know, Hostinger is the only brand in India to provide affordable hosting with great features like free domain, email, unlimited SSL, etc. And the best part is that they have a new data center in Mumbai now, so that we can get great speed and uptime. So let me just click on this claim deal because this is the best plan that's been going on for Hostinger, and click on add to cart. And you're going to be routed to this page where you can choose your plan. I would recommend if you're just getting started, you can either go for 12-month plan or 24-month plan. But if your pocket allows, definitely you can go for 48-month plan because this is the most affordable plan out there with just 149 rupees per month. So let me just choose at least 12 months plan over here to get a maximum discount, which we can see is 63%. And not just this, I've got you guys sorted with my own discount coupon. So if you click on over here, have a coupon code and just enter roadside coder and click on apply. Boom, you get additional discount over here, additional 10% discount. And now you guys can quickly come on over here and fill your details and just click on submit secure payment to get your premium web hosting plan. Alright, so we are inside of our dashboard now, and let's quickly claim our domain. So I'm gonna enter roadsidecoder.in, and you can see we have a bunch of different domains over here to choose from. So let's click on check availability, and yep, our domain is available. Let's claim the domain. Let's just complete the registration by entering that this is my personal domain. Let's enter my details. And after you're done, just click on finish registration and it's gonna show you the summary of your details. Click on this checkbox and complete registration. There we go, our domain has been secured. We can just skip over here, and here it is. Here's the dashboard for our domain. Now this might take some time, like 10 to 20 minutes to get your domain secured for Hostinger. So meanwhile, let's go on and set up our premium web hosting. And it's gonna ask me a few questions. So let's just give me this for me. I want to create a website. What do you want to create a website with? You can also choose Hostinger's website builder if you want. So I'm gonna skip that for now, and I'll choose my roadsidecoder.in domain. Let's select my country, which is already selected, India. And now it's gonna be initializing our website for us. And there you go, we're done with it. And you can see over here, it's gonna show us that our domain is being connected. It might just take around 12 minutes.
A few moments later.
And great, our domain is connected. You can see our website is running smoothly. They also have a 30 days money back guarantee and a great 24/7 customer support in case you get stuck anywhere in this process. So okay, let's go back to our React app, and we're gonna come back to Hostinger when we have to host our app. So now I'll set up Tailwind CSS with our project. So I'll go back and search Tailwind CSS with wheat. Open this first link. And you can simply see over here, we have to install Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, and Auto Prefixer. So let's do that. And after that, we have to do npx tailwind init-p so that it creates a tailwind.config.js for us. Okay, let's do that, and you're gonna see it will create a Tailwind file for us, a configuration file for Tailwind for us, just like this. And we have to add a few things inside of it, which is this, so that it recognizes what are all the files that we're going to be working on. So we're going to be working on JavaScript, TypeScript, JSX, TSX, these sort of files, right? So this is important line. And also in the end, we are supposed to import the Tailwind directives to our CSS. So if I open my src folder, first of all, let's get rid of all of these things that we don't need, everything inside of app.css, and we will paste those over here. Everything inside of index.css. I'm going to delete this assets folder. We're not going to need this. And inside of app.jsx, I'll get rid of this. And instead of everything inside of return, I'll just have a div, which will say subscribe to Roadside Coder, which you should if you haven't yet. Let's get rid of this state as well. And let's quickly go on and run our website now. Okay, it's open now. And amazing. Subscribe to Roadside Coder. We can see this right here. Okay, now let's quickly go on and plan our app. So inside of our app, we will have a home page. Just write it over here. We will have a home page, a categories page, a search page, and a single GIF page. Also, favorites page. So these are all the routes that we're going to be having inside of our app, right? So since we're creating a multi-page app, we're going to be needing something called React Router DOM. So I'll say npm install react-router-dom. And I would recommend you that you install at 16.4, which is going to be the version that I'm using right now. Else you can just say React Router DOM and press enter. So okay, it has quickly installed React Router DOM. Great. Now let's go on and set up all of the routes for our app. So right above this, I'll create a router const router equals create browser router. And if you're using the very latest version of React Router DOM, this will be the part of that. And this is the new way of defining the routes in React Router DOM. So inside of this, it takes an array, and for each object, we can define the routes. So for example, for the first one, I can define our very base element, which I'm going to keep as a layout. So app layout, where all of my pages will be rendered. And if you remember, inside of our website, we had this header common, right? So we want this header to be on all of the pages, like search page, category page, etc., right? So the header is going to be the part of this app layout. So let me just create a folder over here for layout. Obviously, you can create the file here as well, but this is a good practice that we are going to follow. So app layout.jsx, or let's just call it layouts. And similarly for our pages, I'll have a pages folder as well. And for our components folder. Okay. So inside of the app layout, I'll say RAFCE and press enter. And if you're wondering how I did this, so I'm using an extension called ES7 plus React Redux React Native Snippet. So you can install this and you can also get these code snippets. Okay. So let's import this app layout here. And then below this element, I'm going to have a children array, inside of which we will have our different pages. So for example, for our first page, the path will be / right? This is going to be our home page. And again, we will have an element, which I'm going to call home. Obviously, I haven't created it yet, so I'll create it in just a moment. Also, one more thing, apart from these elements, it has another key called error element, where like if any of the error occurs in these elements, it's going to fall back to this error element. We can also define error element on the route level, right? So you can do that if you want, but I'll let the React Router DOM handle the error for us by its default error page. So, okay, let's go inside of the pages, and I'll create a new file, home.jsx. And actually, I'll create other files as well. So let's just say RAFCE, this will be home, and I'll just copy and paste it several times. Since we have 5 pages, so home, and we have categories page, so categories, or let's say category page. We have a search page, we have a single GIF page and a favorites page. And inside of each of these, I'll just say, for example, for categories or category, I'll have category, and for favorites, for the search page, and for the single GIF page, or let's call it the GIF page. Alright, let's import all of these routes over here. So first of all, our home route, I'll duplicate it several times. Now next will be our category route. But see, for our categories, as I've already shown you, if I click on this reactions over here, we don't have any set route defined, right? It can be different for different routes. So for that, I will say colon and then category variable, right? So this, we will make use of this category variable inside of that category component or category page. So category page imported. Then we will have a search page, so /search/ and again we don't know the query, right? So if I show you, if I say cats, see, we don't know what's going to be after the slash, so that's why /cats. Then let's import the search page here. Then after that, I'll have a single GIF page. So if I click on it, you're going to see we have GIFs / whatever the slug of that GIF is. But notice one thing, if I go back to my home page and click on stickers, and if I click on any stickers, see, now it's stickers, so it's again dynamic. Both of these routes are dynamic. So how do we do this? Again, we're going to define it. So I'll have a one variable for type and other variable for the slug. This will be the GIF page. Then at the end, we will have the favorites page. Pretty simple. I'll have favorites imported right here. So these are all the routes that we are going to be using, and let's take this router variable, and instead of this div, I'll say route provider, and I'll import it from React router DOM. See, and create browser router was also imported from that, and I'll give this router as a prop to this. Okay, this looks good. Okay, let's run our app again, and if I go back to our app, you can see that this is empty right now. We can only see the app layout over here. And that is because inside of the app layout, we have to mention where these pages will be rendered. So if we go inside of the app layout, here I'll have a main tag. So before above main tag, we're gonna have a header as well. So I'll just add a comment right now for rendering the header. So inside of the main tag, I'll add something called outlet, which comes from React Router DOM, and here is where our routes will be rendered. So if I go back, you can see home. If I say I don't know, search / something, we can see that. If I say GIFs and some random slug, and we can see we are at GIF page. If we say favorites and so on, right? So you get the idea. Our app is working fine. So now let's just give this some basic styling to our app layout. Like for example, I want the background of my app to be a shade of black, right? So I'll say BG dash, and if you press Control space, you're gonna see all of these recommendations over here. BG, so I'll say gray and 950, and if I go back, you can see its background is 950. And also, if you're not getting the recommendations just like this, make sure that you have this Tailwind extension added. This one, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. This will give you all of these suggestions, right? So after that, I'll have text to be white, and minimum height of our screen we want to be 100 viewport. So I'll say min at screen, and you can see the preview over here as well. Minimum height 100 viewport height. And now if I go back, you can see our whole screen is black and our text is white. Great. Inside of this, I'll have another div, and basically inside of this div will be all of our content, right? So I'll just give this a class name of container so that this adds some breakpoint to our app. I'll show you in just a minute. And padding of left and right to be 6. So for px it's left and right, and for py it's up and down. So py 4. So you can exactly see the amount of pixels that you're adding. So if it's py 4, then it's adding 16 pixels to top and the bottom. Then I'll say mx auto so that it renders at the very middle. And yeah, you can see if I click on inspect and make the screen small, you can see we have the breakpoints according to different screens. All right, let's go on now and build our header. So inside of the components, I'll create a new file for header.jsx, RAFCE, and header. let's take this header and render it right over here. Just like this, it's imported. And now let's see, what are all the things that will go inside of this header? So first of all, we will have logo, then all of these categories along with this drop down, our favorite GIFs button, and our search bar as well. Okay, so inside the header, for our categories, I'll have a state. So state basically means you can consider it as a variable in React, but whenever we change the state, our UI updates, and we use state, which comes from React, and it gives us with an array which contains two things: the variable, which I'm gonna call categories for managing our categories or storing our categories inside of it, and another is a setter function, set categories. Obviously you can name these anything. This will be helpful for changing this variable over here. And here we can give the initial value, which I'll give as an empty array, because this category is going to be an array, right? Then below that I'll have another state which is going to be show categories, and it will be false by default. So basically here we are maintaining a state for showing or hiding the categories. Okay, now inside this I'll have a nav tag for our header, and these tags, make sure to use correct tags at correct places for proper accessibility of these elements. If you don't know much about what accessibilities and all is, I've covered it in my complete front-end interview preparation course. So make sure you click the link in the description down below and check out this course. This is the only thing that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interviews. And not only this, I've covered every single topic of React.js, like React Router DOM, Redux, all of the hooks, class-based component, function-based component React, even the performance optimization, which is asked from senior developers a lot, tons of machine coding questions as well, and obviously in-depth interview preparation course on JavaScript as well. So all of this you get in one single course. So click the link in the description down below, because right now we're having the biggest sale of the year for a very limited time. So don't forget to check it out. Or you can also scan this QR code on your screen to go directly to the course page. So I'll have a div over here. And inside this, first of all, I'll have a link tag for this logo, because this logo will lead us to the home page, right? So I'll say to / and this link comes from React Router DOM. So this link is useful instead of a tag, because this makes our website blazingly fast without having to reload our page. Inside this link, I'll have a image, and for this image, if you go inside the public folder, you can find this logo.svg that I've added in my GitHub repository. So you can copy these 4 files to your project as well, so that it is helpful for you to add these images. So if you simply say /logo.svg and go back, see, we have the logo of GIPHY, but this is too big. So I'll add a class name over here of width to be 8, which is going to be 32 pixels, right? If we save it and go back, yep, this is proper. And the alt tag will be GIPHY logo. Then after this, I'll have a h1 tag, which will simply say GIPHY. And I'll give this some class names of text 5XL. So basically in Tailwind, texts have different sizes. So it can be large, like small, or large, or XL. And XL has multiple different XLs, like all the way to 9XL. So I'm gonna choose 5XL. Then I'll make this text bold, tracking tight so that all of the texts are closer to each other, and cursor pointer so that you can see the pointer as cursor. So just like this. Let's give this link some styles. So it's going to be display flex, and gap will be 2 between both of these. And now if I see, this looks good. Now below this link, I'm gonna be rendering my categories. So I'll just say render categories, and below this. So basically here we're gonna be running a map for rendering our categories. So for now, I'll just create one single category. So I'll have a link tag here. Inside this, let's add a random category name. Let's say reactions. And for styling it, so class name will be padding left and right will be 4. Padding up and down will be 1. I'll have some hover over it. So whenever we hover on it, we have these colors over here, right? So for that, I'll create actually a custom class called gradient. So how do you create custom class in Tailwind CSS? If I go inside of my app.css, inside of it, you can say something like @layer, and you can see use @layer directive to tell Tailwind which bucket a set of custom styles belongs to. So I'll just say utilities, and inside this I'll have this gradient class, and all this gradient class will do is, first of all, you have to say apply before adding the style. So apply and background gradient to right side. So basically it will start from left and go all the way to the right. So on the left I'll have teal 600 color, in the middle I'll have blue 600, and on the right I'll have pink color, right? So this class right here will be used in multiple different places. So that's why I've created it custom over here. And now if I show you, if I have said hover gradient, and then I'll say border bottom to be 4, and I'll keep it hidden in smaller screens, but in bigger screens this will be visible. And you're going to be understanding why, because whenever we make these small, like if I make this app smaller, you can see those categories are gone and they're right over here. So in the smaller screens we don't want to show it, right? So if I come over here, inspect, make it smaller, yep, you can see it's gone. All right, now to this parent div I'll give some class names like position relative, display flex, a gap of 4 between these, so that we have some gap, and actually I'll give justify between so that they are on the separate corners, items to the center so that top to bottom they are on the center, and margin bottom to be 2. So now this looks much better. Yeah, just like this. Our hover class is also working. Now after all of these are rendered, we have this ellipsis as well, right? So to add these icons, I'm gonna install a library called React Icons, this one. So simply you'll have to say, go to your terminal, open a new terminal, npm install React Icons, and press enter, and this will install the React Icons. So now if I come on over here, I'll have a button tag. Inside of this I'll import an icon. So if I go back and let's choose hero icons 2, and there's this icon called hi ellipsis vertical. So obviously you have all of the icons over here, you can choose whatever icon you like. I like that more, so I'm gonna choose that for my menu. So I'll just paste it here, and you can, if I come on over here and try to import it by pressing Ctrl space, click on this, and you can see this has been imported from React Icons hi2, that is hero icons 2. Let's close this terminal and save this. And if I go back, yep, you can see we have this icon over here. Let's style this a little bit. So it's going to be similar to what I've given over here. So I'll say class name of padding top bottom to 0.5, which is around 2 pixels. And on hover, we want some gradient. Then all of these as well. I'll paste it over here. And now if I go back, yep, looks better. And actually, instead of giving this to the button, I'll just give it directly to over here. And also I'll give this size of 35. This icon has an inbuilt size prop that you can give. So now, yeah, this looks much better. And also whenever we click on this button, we will see that categories drop down, right? For which I've created this show categories state as well. So let's take this set show categories. So whenever I click on it, so I'll say on click, I'll say set show categories to whatever the value of this is. So I'll say invert show categories. And similarly, I'll add a class name over here as well. Whenever it's open, it's going to be selected. So I'll put it in curly braces and wrap it in backticks like this. And I'll check if show categories is true. Oh, sorry, I made a spelling mistake. It's categories. Yeah, if show categories is true, then show the permanent gradient, else nothing. Right, let's go back. If I click on it, yeah, you can see it's active. If I click on it again, it's gone. All right, so below this button, I'll actually have a button for that favorite GIFs as well, right? So I'll just say a div. I'll give it height of 9, which is 36 pixels. Some background of background gray 700. Some padding top, padding left and right of 6. Cursor pointer and rounded. And this will lead us to /favorites. Okay. So if I see, yep, this looks good. And you can see it took us to favorites. Let's go back to the home page. And you can see this is constant and this is changing whenever you're going to another page. Now, we've already seen that when we make this smaller, this will be gone, right? But we have to display another icon over here. So for that, I'll have a button after this. Inside of this, I'll have a hi mini bars 3 bottom right. So obviously you can check React icons for importing these icons. I'm again importing this from React icons hi2. You can choose a different icon if you want. And for inside of the class name, I'll have text sky 400 display block in the smaller screens, and the bigger screens this will be hidden, reverse of what we've written over here. right? So if I go back and see, yep, you can see we have this button right here. Let's make the size a little bigger. So I'll say size equals 30. Okay, looks good. Now, whenever we click on this button, I want to display that pop-up, right? So below this div, if the show categories is true, so I'll say if the show categories is true, then display a div over here. I'll have a span which will contain categories, and then below this span, I'll have a HR which will draw a line for us. So if I go back and show you this, we have this line, right? So below this, I'll have another div which will render all of those categories. So for now, I'll just let's have a link over here which will say reactions, and I'll give this a class name of font bold. Let's go back and see. Okay, if I click on it, it's displaying, but we need to add some class name so that this becomes a pop-up. So inside of this, I'll have class name with the position absolute. So if you remember, I gave this position relative. So relative to this will be position on right 0, top 14. So if I show you, yeah, just like this, px, that is horizontal padding will be 10, top padding will be 6, bottom padding will be 9. So just like this, it's going to be full, and gradient is going to be the background with z index to be 20. And also let me check why is it in the full width. It should be following the container. I guess I need to wrap this thing inside of another div, and I need to keep this inside of this div. So let me put it over here. And if I go back now, yep, this is fine, but I need to wrap these into one div. So right here, I'll have a div and put it up until this point. So if I see, yep, now we need to obviously style this as well. So I'll say class name, font to be bold, text to be medium, display flex, some gap between these, and items to be center, so that we can display them in one row. Yep, just like that. And you can see this is also working fine. Great. Now in the very bottom below this, I'll have a search. So I'll just add the comment right now. Alright, cool. So I guess we have built a very basic version of our header. Alright, so now let's go on and render some data over here. And for that, we're going to be using the official GIPHY API. So before that, let's set up our state management. And for our state management, I'm going to be using context API. So I'll create a new folder over here, context. And inside this, I'll have a new file for context.jsx. Now let's just say GIF context.jsx. And it's going to be very simple. I'll first create a new context over here, import it from React, and then after that I'll have a provider component or just a normal function. So const GIF provider. This will take a children as a prop and return this GIF context dot provider, and we will provide the children inside of this, and whatever we wrap with this will have the access to anything that we sent from over here. Right, and after this, I'll say export default GIF provider. Now we have to take this and go to our app.jsx, and we're gonna wrap it with this GIF provider. And let's import it over here, just like this. And now whole of our app has the access to whatever is the data that this GIF context will be sending us. And that is the exact role of Context API. You might have heard of things like Redux or Zistang. It is very similar to that, but this comes inbuilt inside of a React app. Now, before doing anything over here, I'll go back to my browser and search GIPHY API. Or you can also search GIPHY developers, whatever. So just click on this GIPHY API quick start guide, and you have to create an API key. So click on this create an API key button, and it's gonna ask you to create a new account. And after you have done that, it's gonna give you an API key right over here, and you can click on it and copy it. So inside of our root directory, I'll create a new file .env, where I'll keep my environment variables, or variables that I don't want to disclose to everyone, to the public. So I'll say wheat underscore. So it has to start with wheat underscore since we're using wheat app, and you can name it anything. I'm gonna name it GIPHY key, and let's give it that API key. Okay, and don't share this API key with anyone because this is unique to you. And this API has the limit of 100 calls per hour. So if you share it with others, they will use all of your limits. Now to use this API, GIPHY provides us with an npm package, which is npm install @GIPHY/JS fetch -API. Press enter. GIPHY JS fetch, JS fetch API. And if you click on this npm package, you're gonna click on this edit in code sandbox. And when you go on over here, and when you land on this code sandbox, you can see all of the API endpoints that you can use and also their responses as well. After this has been installed, over here you need to say const name whatever variable that you like. I'm saying gf for GIPHY fetch, and I'll say new GIPHY fetch, and this is the function that we have to use. So it comes from @GIPHY/JS fetch API, and inside of it I'll give it that API key. So import.meta.env.wheat_GIPHY_key, just like this. And now we can take this GF over here and say value. Inside this we can provide it here. Now this variable is available to whole of our app. We can import it anywhere inside of our app, and we can avoid the prop drilling. And also one more thing, I'll create a new function over here. So export const GIF state. Inside of this I'll just simply return use context, and we will provide it with our GIF context. Now this will be used for accessing our state, but we don't want to again and again write use context and GIF context, import two different things. That's why I've created this one function and exporting it. So we can just take it and go back to our header. I can say GIF state. Let's import it just like this and call it. Inside of it I'll have our whole state. So I'll just take this GF over here. And similarly, if we go back to our GIF context, we can have different states. Like for example, over here I'll create 3 different states. For first one for our GIFs, so let me import use state over here. First one for our GIFs, which will contain all of these GIFs over here, these. Second one for filter, which is going to be tracking which is the current filter, is it GIFs, sticker or text. And the third one will be for favorites. This will track if our favorites has been added and which favorites have been added, and selective, and accordingly it will display this favorite GIFs button. So okay, let's just send whatever that we are going to be needing to our app. So here I'll just send GIFs and set GIFs. I'll send filter, set filter, and favorites. Alright, this we don't need to send because this will be only be needed right here. Okay, now if I go back to the header, we can take out filter, set filter, and favorites over here as well. So if you see, I've given them initial value as empty for the GIFs. For our filter, the initial value is GIFs. Obviously this can be stickers or text as well, and this is empty array. All right, so this is going to be helpful for us over here. So let's fetch our GIF categories. So first endpoint that I'm going to be creating is for fetching GIF categories. And see, we have this GF over here, right? So I'll simply say await GF.categories, and this will be an async function since we are making an API call, right? And it will internally handle all of these things. After this, we will take this data and set categories with this data. And now we have all of the categories. And we are going to be calling this function inside of the use effect. So use effect runs whenever the component loads if the dependency array is empty. So whenever our component loads, this will be called and our categories will be fetched. So cool, let's go on and render these categories. So right over here, I'll say categories dot, and if you see, for the first time we are just rendering only 5 categories, and when we click on it, you can see other categories as well, right? So I'm going to simply say dot slice. First of all, I'll add the conditional rendering over here so that if it's undefined, we can see. So slice, and I'll slice it from 0 to 5. This will only show us 5 elements, and I'll say map, and inside of the map I'll take the category, and then I'll wrap this whole link with this map, and I'll say return. And instead of this reactions, now I'll say categories or category dot name. Let's give this some key as well. Key is going to be category dot name as well, and this link will take us to slash whatever the category is. So I'll say category dot name underscore encoded. So how do I know all of these keys? So you can just console log this categories state, and you're gonna know what are all the things that are included inside of it. So now if I go back, see, we have all of these categories right over here, and we click on it, we can see them as well. Let's render this as well, but first we don't want to display this favorite GIFs over here, right, unless it has some favorite GIFs. So I'll wrap this and I'll say favorites. So if you see, we have imported this favorites over here. Favorites dot length is more than 0, only then show it. And for this drop down, I'll again do categories dot map, and inside of it I'll have this link. Let's take the category, let's return it over here, and instead of this I'll have category dot name. So now if I go back, yep, we have a bunch of different categories. This will also take us to, where is it? This will also take us to slash category dot name encoded, and I've added the key as well. Now let's style these a little bit. I haven't styled them yet. So for our span tag, I'll have a class name of text 3XL font extra bold. For my HR tag, I'll give it background gray 100 and opacity 50 so that it's very light, you can see, and margin bottom and top will be 5. For this one, I'll give it display grid. So see, for giving display grid, you just have to say grid, and then I want in the very smaller screens to grid column 2. So I want it to have just 2 columns. So if I show you in the smaller screen, it will have 2 columns. As we will grow bigger, see, above smaller screens, I'll have grid columns 3. Above medium screen, grid column 4. Above large screen, grid column 5. So just like this, I've taken care of all of this, responsiveness of our app. And in the end, I've given gap 4 so that they have some gap between them. Alright, so I'll build this search in just a moment, but let's go on and first render all of the GIFs over here below this. So let's go on and build our home page. So I'll come to this home.jsx in the pages, and inside of this, I'll fetch the states from our context, that is GF, GIFs, set GIFs, and filter. We're going to be needing all of this, and let's fetch all of the trending GIFs. So fetch trending GIFs. This will be an asynchronous function, and inside of it, I'll say const data equals, and I'll say await GF dot, and I'll say trending. And this will take a few functions, like for example, the limit. I'll set the limit to 20. I just want 20 GIFs for now. The type of the GIF, by default, the filter is GIFs, right? So I'll just give it the filter, which comes from over here, and I'll give the rating, which is going to be G. So they have multiple different rating. You can check out their API documentation. I'll take the data now, and I'll say set GIFs to this data. We've set this data to this GIFs, and again we will call this function inside of the use effect. So let's call this function. Oops, I think I made a spelling mistake. Yeah, now it's better. And whenever our filter changes, obviously this function will be called again. That's why I've given it inside of this dependency array. Now simply inside of this div, first of all, I'll render an image with the src of slash banner.gif that I've given inside of our public folder. And this will be an earth banner, so you can have whatever banner you like. I just took this banner from their website and rendered it over here. Class name will be margin top to 2. It will have rounded corners and width will be full. So if I go back now, you can see this looks much better. And now below this, I'll render my filter GIFs or filter GIF component, which obviously I haven't created yet. So I'll just comment it out for now. And right below this, we are going to be rendering our GIF. So this is the main part of our app, right? So I'll have a div, and inside of this, I'll render the GIFs. So GIFs.map, and we will take a single GIF from here, and I'll render it inside of our GIF component, which obviously again I haven't created yet. So let's do one thing. Let's create this GIF component first. So inside of this components, I'll create a new file, gif.jsx, RAFCE, and I'll call it GIF. Now this will take few things like GIF and the hover. So if I show you, whenever we hover on this, we have this black tint at the bottom and it shows the name of the creator. So we have the option to not show that with the help of that prop, right? So hover, I'll keep it true by default. That is, we want to show it every time. But if someone supplies it false, it won't be shown. So instead of this div, actually, I'll have a link tag over here, because whenever we click on it, it will take us to the single GIF page, which is 2. And first of all, it will take the filter, right? So GIF dot type slash GIF dot slug. And let me show you one thing. Like for example, I'm using this trending over here. Inside this, we can see the data of all of this GIFs, like GIF type and GIF name and all of the images over here. Where is it? Yep, inside this image, we're going to be using fixed width. And here I'll be taking this either URL or WebP. Right, so you can go on and explore this out. So, okay, inside this link, I'll have a div. For this div, I'll have some classes of width full, margin bottom to be 2, position relative, and cursor to be pointer. Inside this div, I'll render my image of the actual GIF. So that fixed width that I showed you earlier, I'll say image, src will be gif.images.fixedWidth, and I'll take the WebP. Alt tag will be gif.title, and I'll have the class name of width full, object to be cover, and sides will be rounded. Transition all and duration will be 300, so we can see some transition when we hover on it. So let's try to render this first. So I'll just import it over here, and then this will take GIF equals GIF. Let's see, we don't have anything here. I think we need to return, and the key I'll give as GIF.title. Let's see. Okay, we have all of these GIFs being rendered over here. Let's style them in a masonry layout. So for this div, I'll give a class name of columns2. So basically, when the screen is smallest, I'll give the columns 2. It will be displayed in 2 columns, and you can see instantly they're beginning to render just like we want them to be. Whenever the screen size is bigger than medium, columns will be 3, bigger than large, columns will be 4, bigger than XL, columns will be 5, and gap will be 2 between them. So if I show you, if I gradually increase the size, yep, this looks much better. And now inside this GIF component, I'll add that hover effect that I showed you. So if the hover is true, then I'll display a div over here. And inside of this div, I'll have the user image and the user title. So user image will be gif.user.avatar URL, and the user title will be gif.user.displayname, and simply it will be height of 8. So if I go back, right now you'll be seeing them below this, but I want them above it. So what I'll do, I'll wrap this whole thing inside of a group. So when we hover on this, we can only see then. So this group, and then over here, first of all, I'll have a class name of absolute. Inset will be 0 and rounded, and I'll have the opacity of 0. And when the group is hovered, so group hover, I'll say opacity to 100. By default, it will be 0, and when the hover is there, then it's going to be 100. Then I'll add few more classes after it, which will be background gradient to bottom. That way it will be from top to bottom gradient. It will start from transparent, go through transparent, and go all the way to the black, so that we can only see the black shade at the very bottom. Font will be bold. Display flex. Items will be at the very end, that is at the very bottom, and they will have gap of 2 between them. So it will be, since the display is flex, it will be in a row, and padding will be 2 as well. So if I go back now and show you, if I hover on this, yep, this is exactly what we wanted. Okay, and then over here I'll give a class name of aspect video, so that we can see them in the 16:9 aspect ratio. Okay, cool. So we have rendered all of our GIFs. Let's render those filters between them so that we can filter out our GIFs. So if I go back to home, we have this filter GIF component, right? So let's just create it over here. Inside our component, I'll say filter dash gif.jsx. I'll create a new component for filter GIF. And for this, I have actually created a dummy data for our filters. So title will be GIF, value will be GIFs, and I've given some custom background for each of them. So this will be a gradient background, right? So it will go to top right, from bottom right to top right. This one will start from purple and go all the way to the lighter shade of purple. Like it will start from 500, go through 600, and end at 500. So you can customize these according to you if you like. And inside of this, I'm going to simply render these filters. Let's first fetch our state from the context. So I'll use this GIF state, and I've imported it just like this. And inside the div, I'll first of all have some, props like align left. If align left is false, then it will be aligned right, else the align left is true. So by default, we will align it to the right, but in some pages like search, we will need to align it to the left, right? So that's why I've added this prop, and show trending, which will be false by default. So if I show you, we have this trending tag over here, right, which will only be shown on home page. So that's why I've added this conditional prop over here to show that. Now inside this div, I'll have the condition for show trending. If that is the case, then I'll render a span, and inside this span I'll have a icon over here which will be HI mini arrow trending up. So again, if whatever icon that you like, you can use it over here. I like to use this one, and this will be imported from, again, hero icons 2. Size will be 25 and the color will be text teal 400. Below this, I'll have another span with the class name of font semi-bold and text gray to be 400. So if I go back and see, okay, yeah, we haven't imported this component yet. Let's import it here. And yeah, obviously we need to say show trending to true, only then this will be visible. Yep, just like this. Let's go on and style it a little bit. So inside of this span, I'll have a class name with display flex and gap of 2. Yep, that's better. For this class name over here, I'll keep it inside of backticks, and I'll say flex, margin top and bottom to be 3 and gap to be 3. We haven't rendered our filters, which will be rendering over here. Then you'll know why I've done this. And when the align left is true, then we will say justify end. That is, everything will be aligned to the left. So if I see, yep, you can see align left is true. But right now we haven't added that, right? So this will be on the left side and the filter will be on the right side. All right, now below this, let's render all of our filters. So I'll have a div. Inside this, I will render filters.map, and I will return a span tag over here. Here I'll be taking a f as a filter. Inside this, I'll say f.title. Let's see if this is rendered. Yep, we can see that. And also, let's just say over here, if the show trending is true, I'll have justify between, so that they are on the far corners from each other, and it will be flex column in the smaller screens, and when the screen size is bigger than small, I'll say flex row, and when it's bigger than smaller screens, I'll say items to be center. So if I show you now, oops, I think I need to give a else condition as well, just like this. Okay, let's see. If I make the screen small, you can see it will become flex column now. And let's just make this UI first, then it will look much better. So right here, I'll give the class name, and I'll also keep this inside of the backticks. Keep it font semi-bold, top bottom padding to be 2, width will be 1/3 for each, because there's going to be 3 items, right? So I'll say width 1/3. Text is going to be center, rounded to be full, so it shows us like in like a pill shaped format, and cursor pointer. And I'll give the key as well over here, key equals f.title. And when we click on each of these filters, we will select them. So on click, set filter to be whatever filter is selected. And let's give the style for this one as well. Whichever filter will be selected, its background will be rendered. So if you remember, we have this background, right? So it will have that particular color. So I'll say if filter is equals to f.value, that is current value, I'll render f.background, else no background. So let's go and see. If we select these, yep, this looks better, and you can see this is instantly working. Great. So let's give this div some class name as well, so that this looks even better. I'll say flex, minimum width to be 80, rounded is going to be full, and background gray to be 800. So yeah, this is great. If I make this smaller, yeah, you can see this is adapting in such a good way. All right. Now let's go on and work on the search functionality. Let's go on and add the search bar over here. So inside of our header, we're gonna have a GIF search component, and inside of the components, I'll get a new file for GIF search.jsx, RAFCE GIF search. And actually I realized one thing, we don't need this filter and set filter over here because we are not sending it to our GIF search. I thought this will be used, but this will actually be used in our GIF search page, and this is just a search component. So here I'll have a local state for our query. So I'll say query, and let's import the use state. And whenever we click on the search, right, it will send us to the search page. So we will have a function here for search GIFs. And we will check if the query is empty, then return it. If it's not empty, then I'm gonna navigate them to /search/ whatever the query is, right? And to create this navigate, I'll have a use navigate hook from React Router DOM. So const navigate equals use navigate. Okay, now this is going to be a very simple UI for search, right? So I'll just quickly go on and build it. So I'll say class name first of all for flex, and relative, because relative I've given it over here because we're going to be giving this absolute to this X icon, right? So inside of this, first of all, I'll have my input. So input will be simple, input type text. Value is going to be the query, this query right here. And we want to set query on change to e.target.value. The placeholder I want is search all the GIFs and stickers, and class name width will be full. Padding left will be 4, padding right will be 14, padding top and bottom will be 5, and text will be Excel. Text will be black on the white background and rounded to be top left and bottom left. So over here, if you see, I want it rounded. Oops, I haven't imported it yet. Let's just import it. Yep, imported it. You can see, yeah, it's over here, but here it's going to be straight because I want a button to be here. And then I'll have the outline to be none. And now after this, I'll have this X button that will be rendered over here. And you know what, before that, let's just render this red button for our search. So on click simply, we will call this search GIFs, and class name will be background gradient starting from bottom left to top right. And I've given some gradient over here. Again, you can give whatever gradient that you like, from ping 600 to ping 400, so that this looks good. Text white on this background, padding left and right to 4, top and bottom to be 2, and rounded from top right and bottom right. For this one, it was top left and bottom left. And I'll import this icon, which will be coming from hero icons 2. Size I've given as 35, and class name is going to be minus scale -x100 to flip it. So by default, if I remove it, you're gonna see this is like this, right? But I want it to be facing the other direction, so just like this. Great. Let's add that X symbol over here. First of all, we only want to show that symbol if the query is there. So right here, if there's a query, I'll have this button, and I'll have this HI mini mark X, which also comes from hero icons 2. Size will be 22, and the class name will be absolute, and I will render it 20 pixels from right now. It's actually not 20 pixels, it's 80 pixels. It's 5 rem. Margin right will be 2, top will be 6, and rounded will be full, right? And opacity will be 90 with some background of gray 300. So if I show you now, if I say cats, yep, you can see if I click on it, it's gone. So I've added this on click functionality that set query to empty. And this was that simple to create a search bar. So amazing. Let's try out this search now. So again, let's search cats and click on search, and we are on search page. Amazing. And also I want you to implement whenever we type cats and press enter over here as well. Again, it will call that function, like this function over here on pressing of enter. All right, so now we are on the search page. Let's start building this search page. And you can see in the URL, we have this /cats over here. This is what we're going to be using. So if I go back to my code, to the pages, we will have this search page. All right, so inside of our search page, first of all, we need to fetch that query, right, from the URL. So I'll be using use params. And this use param hook comes from React Router DOM. And this will give you the variable that is inside of our search. So if I go back to my app.jsx, inside of the app.jsx, we have this query variable that we have given to this route. So I'll just take out this query from here. We will have a state over here as well, which will contain all of our search result. So let's import the use state. And also from our GIF state or our context API, we will be importing this GF and filter. All right, now below this, I'll have again a function for fetching our search results. It will be an async function, and inside of this I'm gonna be using the gf.search API. Const data equals await gf.search. Again, you can go through that code sandbox if you want to see the response for this API endpoint. So I'll provide it with the query, and it will also take the options. So first one will be the sort. So I'll sort it by relevancy. So relevant, then language will be English. Now type over here will be the filter that we are taking from our context API, right? So filter, and then limit will be 20 by default. Let's take this data and set our search results with this data and call this function inside of our use effect. And whenever our filter changes, our search results will be fetched again. Okay, simple enough. Inside of this div, first of all, I'll give this the class name of margin top and bottom to be 4, and then I'll have a h2 tag which will say the name of that query. So query, and I'll give this class name of text 5XL, padding bottom to be 3, and font to be extra bold. Let's go back and see. Yep, looks good. Below this h2, I'll render our filter GIFs component. If you remember, we built it just a while ago, this component over here, and we have align left as false, so I'll keep align left true so that this will be aligned to the left side. Alright, then below this, let's render our search results. So I'll first of all check if the search results.length, if it's more than 0, only then render it, or actually I'll say if it's more than 0, then render it, else I'll display in the span tag, I'll say no GIFs found for this query, try searching for stickers instead. And now for here, I'll simply render just like we've done in our home page. So if you remember, we had a div with columns 2, and then for medium screen column 3, large screen column 4, gap to be 2. It's pretty much same, right? And we are going to be importing our GIF component over here. Only difference is we're going to be mapping on this search results.map. That's it. Let's see, I think this should do it. If I go back, yep, we can see we have all of the GIFs related to the cat over here. And some of the GIFs can also miss, like don't have this user information, right? So they won't be displaying this user information. If you want, you can display something else over here. Now, if I click on any of these categories like anime or let's say reaction, we are on over here, but we can't see anything. So let's build our categories page. So if I go to pages and category, here again, we're going to be using use param and take that variable. What was it? If I go to app.jsx, it was category. Okay, so I'll take const category, and this will also have the results over here, just like we had previously, the search results. So you know what, I'll just go on over here and copy this code and paste it here. So for fetching the results of a category, we're not going to be using any of these. Instead, here we have a GIFs API endpoint, which will take the category, this one, comma, category. This is category and this is subcategory. In this case, we are keeping both of them same. Let's get this GF from our GIF state. So let's import the GIF state over here. Okay. And then instead of this search result, I'll say set result. Let's import use effect and fetch search results. I'll change it to fetch results. That's all. Okay. And whenever filter, no, we're gonna keep over here category. Whenever category changes, then this will be called again. Let's go on and render these results. So now if I go back to our final app, click on any of the category, you can see we have two sections. First this one and other this one. So for this container, I'll have a div with the class name of flex. Okay. For the smaller screens, I'll keep flex column so that they display on top of each other, like one below each other, just like this, right? In the smaller screens. But for the bigger screens, I'll keep flex row. So if the screen size is more than small, I'll say flex row. Gap is going to be 5 between these, and margin top and bottom to be 4. Alright, let's build our sidebar now, the left sidebar. So I'll have a div with the class name of width to be full. In the smaller screens, I'll have width to full, and in the screens more than smaller screens, I'll have width 72. So I don't think we will see anything over here right now. Yep, we don't see anything because we haven't included it. So first of all, I want to show a GIF over here. So I'll say, first of all, I'll check if the results is result.length is more than 0, only then display the GIF component over here. Let's import it. So you see how it's how powerful React is. We have just created this component once and we're using it in so many places. And we can simply provide it with GIF equals results and the very first GIF. So let's see. Yep, we can see it over here. And we don't want this tint over here, right, on hover. So I'll just say hover to be false. And now, yep, we don't see it anymore. And right below it, I'll say don't tell it to me, GIF it to me, and I'll give it some text gray of 400, text small, and padding top to be 2. So yeah, just like this. Then right below it, I'll add my socials to follow me somewhere, right? So if you go on and see here, I've added my socials just like this: YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. So you know, this component will be used in multiple places actually. So I'll create a follow on component for this. Inside of components, I'll create a new file, follow-on.jsx, and this will be a very simple component, so I won't be wasting much time on this. Let's just understand it right away. So I've imported these 3 icons from reactIcons.fontawesome6. So you can also import them from there. And simply inside this div, I have a span called follow on, and I'm rendering the div with 3 A tags of YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, with all of them having some icon size, and display flex gap to be 4 between them, padding top will be 3. And I've added this custom class over here, faded text. So let's just go on and define it. So here inside of app.css, I'll have this faded text, and this will simply say font bold, text small, and text gray to be 400. We're going to be using this class in multiple places. That's why I've kept it common over here. So let's take this component and render it here. Yep, you can see follow on. And I've added all of my socials here as well. Now below this, I'll have a div with the class name of divider. And again, this divider, I've created a custom class for this. So inside of app.css, I'll say dot divider, and I'll say width to be full, height to be 0.5, margin top and bottom to be 6, and background gray to be 800. We want to show a line over here. So if I go back, you can see we have a line over here. All right, now below this, we will have another div, and there we will be rendering all of our GIFs related to this category. So div, inside this, I'll have a h2, which will say the name of the category. So category, whatever the category name is. Sometimes it can be like, for example, if we have this art and design, it will be art-design. So what we want to do, we want to say category dot split it from the dash and join it from and, this and with spaces on both of the side, and say GIFs. And let's see, yep, reaction GIFs. Let's give it some styling, like class name to be capitalized so that the first letter is capital, text to be 4XL, padding bottom to be 1, font to be extra bold. Now, okay, this looks good. Then below this, I'm gonna be rendering what category this is exactly. So this is a reactions category. So I'll say @reactions or whatever it is, right? So it will be text large, text gray to be 400, color of the text, padding bottom to be 3, font will be bold, and when we hover on it, it's gonna be text gray of 50 and cursor pointer. So if I go and see when you hover on it, it's kind of white. And again, below this, we're gonna be rendering all of our GIFs just like we have been doing up until this point in our home page and in our search page as well. So simply I'll say those classes of column 2, column 3, column 4, gap 2, and results dot slice, and I will skip the first result since we have already displayed it over here. So starting from first result to the very end, I'm gonna map it and I'm gonna render this GIFs component. Okay, let's see. Yep, we have them right here. And I think there's some issue because on the bigger screen it's not working. So I guess I have to add the XL class for columns 5, I guess. Yep, that's working since it was bigger than XL. Okay, perfect. So we've made our category page as well. Now for the main thing, whenever we click on any of these GIFs, let's say this one. Oh, it's breaking. It's saying /GIF/ okay, let's see. Let's go back to our GIF and okay, we have to add slash over here. And now if I go back and click on this again, yep, we are on /GIF/ whatever the slug is. Okay, let's build this. So first of all, from the params, we need 2 things, the type and the slug. right? So inside of a single GIF page, I'll import use params and I'll take out type and slug from it. Then for storing this current GIF, I'm gonna have a state of GIF comma set GIF, and to fetch this GIF now from this particular slug, and actually we are only going to be using this ID, so we're gonna have to separate this ID from here, and we're gonna take it to fetch it. So first of all, we're gonna check inside of our use effect that the type provided is actually valid or not. So I'll say if content type, and actually I'll have a array defined for that called contact or content type. So if content type dot includes this type that is being provided to us from the URL, if it's not there inside of it, I'll simply throw new error and I'll say invalid content type. Oops. Yeah, just like this. So if I try to go on and change it to something else, oh, it's not working. So I think whenever we are routing it, we have to add some S after it as well. So inside of this, is it gif.jsx, I'll add S. So GIFs, stickers and texts. So yeah, now if I say GIFs and enter, yeah, it's working. All right. Now after this, I'm going to be calling the fetch GIF. So let's create const fetch GIF function. And inside this, I'll first of all figure out what's the ID going to be from our slug. So slug dot split, I'll split it from the dash as we've already seen, and then we're going to be taking the last bit of it, right, the last part of it. So I'll say const data equals await gf dot gif id, and I'll give gif id dot length -1. We want the last part, right? This will be an asynchronous function, and we haven't taken this gif yet. So from our gif state, let's import it. I'll say const gf. Okay, now after this has been fetched, I'll say set gif to be this data, and actually we're gonna be making one more API call, and that will be for our, if I go to any single GIF, that will be for our related GIFs over here. So now let's take this fetch GIF and call this over here, and after this I'll be rendering one more API. So I'll just duplicate it and I'll say related for related API, so sorry, related GIFs, and same, I'll just provide it with the ID, and instead of this data I'll rename it to related. And actually this will take one more thing. This object will say limit of, I'll just say 10, and I'll create a new state over here for our related GIFs. It's like this, and I'll say set related GIFs to related. And yeah, we have all of our data. Let's go on and render it inside of it. So first of all, let's see what do we have inside of this page. So this page has one sidebar. It has this main area where on the top we will be rendering these two things, and on the bottom we'll be rendering this related GIFs. Okay, so I'll say class name to be grid, and grid columns are going to be 4. So we are going to have 4 columns. Margin top and bottom is going to be 10, and gap is going to be 4 between them. Okay, so we will have multiple different divs over here. First div will have class name of hidden. When the screen is small, it will be hidden, but bigger than smaller screens, it will be block. And this will be for our sidebar. Okay, I'll have another div which will render the actual GIF for us. So I'll just give this a class name of column span 4. All this means is that this will be spanning to 4 columns altogether when the screen is small. So it will take all of the 4 columns when the screen is small, but when the screen is bigger, it will take 3 spaces only. Call span 3. Inside this, I'll have a div which will contain another div which will have the actual GIF, and below this we will be rendering our favorites / share / embed div. Okay, so this will have the class name of display flex and gap to be 6, and this where our GIF will be rendered will be width full in smaller screens, and bigger than smaller screen this will have width of 3/4, and the remaining width will be given to this favorite share embed. Now inside this I'll have first of all the title. So I'll have a div for gif dot title. Let's see if it's rendered. Yep, dog's reaction GIF. And then below this, I'll render the actual GIF. I'll just provide it the current GIF, and the hover will be false. So hover equals false. Let's give this title some class name. Will be faded text, just like we have already defined it in the app.css, and truncate, so that if it's longer than a certain width, it will be truncated, and MB-2, margin bottom to be 2. Let's see. Yeah, I think this looks good. Below this, we'll be adding our mobile UI in just a minute. I'll just add this comment over here. And now below this div, I'll have another div which will contain a span and say related GIFs, on which we'll be working on in just a minute. Let's just say class name of font extra bold. Oops, extra bold. Let's see. Yeah, looks good. Now let's first start working on our sidebar. So if we go back to this page over here, and actually let's select some other GIF. Let's select this one. Yeah, you can see we have this description over here as well. If we click on read more, we can read more of the description, right? So let's just first work on this. So first of all, I'll define a state for read more, and then inside of our sidebar part, I'll first of all check if GIF.user is there. So conditional rendering, because all of this data will be inside of this user, right? And there might be user present or might not be present. So inside of it, I'll have a div, and I'll wrap it with this React fragments, because we will have multiple divs over here and we need to have a parent fragment over here. So this div will have the class name of displayFlex and gap to be 1 between them. And inside this div, I'll first of all have the image of the user. So just like this, you've already seen me build this image and title in the GIF component, right? So gif.user.avatar URL and display name with height 14. And we will render the display name and the username of that particular user. So simply in the div with class name padding horizontal of 2, I'll have a display name of the user and the username of the user with the faded text and font bold. So if I go back and see, yep, this looks good. Now below this will be the actual thing, that is going to be a description. So below this, I'll check if gif.user.description, I'll conditionally render it. Inside of this, I'll have a p tag, a proper p tag, paragraph tag for rendering the paragraphs. So class name of padding top and bottom to be 4. I'll have a white space pre-line class. So this will basically render the data that we are getting from the backend. So if I show you the data that we're getting inside the network tab, this GIF, if you go inside of the description part of the user, okay, this doesn't have any much description over here. So basically it has a description with /n/r, something like that, right? So this will properly format, and whenever it's /n, it will, render it in the next line and something like that. Then we will have the text as small and text gray to be 400. And inside of it, if the read more is true, then I'll render, oops, this should be inside of this. If it's true, then I'll render gif.user.description. Else, I'll render gif.user.description.slice, and I'll just render 100 words or 100 alphabets actually, plus ... And yeah, I think this should do it. Let's add the button below this. So inside of our div, I'll say display flex, items to be center, some faded text class that we've created, and cursor to be pointer. And with this very simple, just on click, just set read more to revert, right? Whatever it is, revert it. If it's true, then I'll say read less, and an icon over here of chevron up, which comes from hero icons 2, and else we will say read more with chevron down, which also comes from hero icons 2. So now if I show you, if I click on it, yep, I think it doesn't really need actually over here. So I'll actually wrap this up. And actually, you know what, this is a task for you as well, that you can go on and add a condition over here. If the alphabets for this particular description, if it's less than 100, then don't display this read more over here. Just put it over here and do some conditional rendering with that. But here in this example, you can see if we click on read more, we have proper read more working. All right, now below all of this, below this, I'll have our follow on component to display that you need to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, X, whatever, right? And then I'll have our div, just like we've done earlier in the search page, a div with the class name of divider. So yeah, looks good. And actually that was categories page, not search page. And then below this, we want to show the source, that is this thing. Okay, this doesn't have a source. Let's just select another GIF from here. So this one. So we have this source over here. Okay. So first of all, obviously we need to check if the GIF.source is true, right? SOURCE. And I'll conditionally render this as well to avoid errors. So inside of it, I'll have a div, and inside that div, I'll have a span tag, which will say source with the class name of faded text. Below the source, simply I'll have a div with flex, display flex, items to be centered, text to be small, font is going to be bold, and gap is going to be 1. And we will simply display this icon, which also comes from hero icons. And I'll inside of a tag, I'll wrap this gif.source link, and I'll give it on href as well. And I'll keep target as _ blank so that it opens up in a new page, and class name will be truncate so that it truncates if it's too long. If I click on it, it's going to be opened into a new tab. Great. All right, now let's work on our mobile UI for this GIF. So right below this, I'll have another div, and this div will have the class name of flex. So in the smaller screen, it will be visible, but in the bigger screens, it will be hidden. So it will only work when the we're in mobile view. So and gap 1, and simply it will just display that user details that we wrote earlier over here, right? So it will show it over here, and then we will have the button for our share GIF. I've imported this FA paper plane from font awesome 6, size will be 25, and on click we'll be calling this share GIF function, which will be coming back to when we'll create this favorite share and embed functionality. So let's see if I make this smaller, inspect smaller screens. Yep, you can see the name of the user and this share button. All right, let's work on this favorites, share and embed. So instead of this, I'll have a div over here with the class name of hidden in the smaller screens, but in the bigger screens, it will be shown. Flex. So I've hidden it because we can see we have this over here. If you want, you can display favorites button over here as well. I've just displayed this share button. Then flex direction will be column because we're gonna be having them from top to bottom, right? Gap will be 5 and margin top will be 6. And inside of it, we will have 3 buttons. So let me just bring them in real quick. This is a very redundant code, so that's why I'll just bring them in directly. First button will be for favorite, and it will call this add to favorites function, which will come from our GIF state. And we will have 2 more functions over here, share GIF and embed GIF, which I'm giving to you as an assignment, and I'll tell you how you can do this assignment in just a second. So this add to favorites will add this functionality, don't worry about it. And let's import this hi mini heart, which comes from React icons hi2. And over here inside of it, we'll have class name. If the favorites is included, we will make this heart icon as red, else this will be empty, right? So if I go back and show you, favorites is not defined. Obviously favorites will come from our state, that is from here, and we will add that functionality in just a second. And again, for share and embed, this I'm giving to you as an assignment, and this icon right here, IO code sharp, is going to be imported from React icons IO5. So now if I go back, okay, cool, this is working fine. So if I go to the actual GIPHY website, giphy.com, and click on any of the GIF, you can see our UI is such similar to that, right? So when we click on share, what I want you to do, I want you to copy the link to this URL. So just try to use ChatGPT or Google it out. This will be a very good assignment for you to practice this. When we click on embed, it's gonna give us a code like this, iframe src, and just try to figure out what format that they're using. If I click on this, copy the code and paste it, you can see what format they are trying to do over here. Try to figure these things out yourself, because when you're going to be working in an actual job, you're going to be working on these small tasks as well that might take your time. So try to figure it out and let me know in the comments down below how you did this. Now let's go on and render our related GIFs over here. So right here below this, it's going to be very, very simple, just like what we have done earlier. The same code again for rendering our GIFs. So related GIFs, and it's going to be starting from 1 because we have already rendered the first one over here. So we can render it just like this, and you can see all the class names and stuff are also the same. And you know what? I think we can avoid making 2 API calls. Since the first GIF is same, we can pick the first GIF, that is where is it? This one right here, this GIF over here, from I guess from this related only, right? So if you want, you can make this change and just render the 0th index in the main GIF section. So great, related GIFs are being rendered as well along with our main GIF. Awesome. And our read more functionality is working flawlessly. Oh, I think I added the wrong condition over here. So if I go to here, I think it will be if not read more, then that. Yeah, this is correct now. Alright, so since we have completed our single GIFs page, now when we click on this, we need to add the functionality of adding to the GIF and displaying that button over there. Right, so let's go to our GIF context and let's add that logic right here. So first of all, we'll be storing all of our favorite GIFs inside of our local storage, and actually we're not going to be storing the actual GIFs, we're going to be storing their IDs. So I'll say const add to favorites. This function will take an ID that has to be added to the favorite or the local storage, and I'll say if favorites, that is this, if it's already includes this, so favorites dot includes ID. If that's the case, then we're gonna remove it from here, right? So I'll say updated favorites equals favorites dot filter will take the item ID and say item ID, if it's not equals to the current ID, then return it. What that will do is it will return that particular ID from our favorites. So now we can say local storage dot set item for setting the item, and we will choose the key as favorite GIFs, and I'll stringify this object or array json.stringify updated favorites, and then in the end I'll set the favorites to updated favorites. But else, if it is not already in the local storage, I'll say const updated favorites equals, I'll make the copy of my state favorites, and then after that I'll have updated favorites dot push. I'll push that particular ID inside of it, and again do the same thing right over here. Okay, this looks good. Now what I want to do, when our component is loaded for the very first time, inside of the use effect, I'm gonna fetch this favorites from local storage and set favorites, right? So I'll say json.parse so that we can convert those stringified values back to the object or array, and I'll get the item favorite GIFs and store it inside the favorites and then set favorites state. Okay, I think that's straightforward, and let's just send it to our app now, the add to favorites function. And now if I go back to this single GIF over here, this should work, I suppose, because we have already added this add to favorites. So let's go. Yeah, awesome, this has been added. Amazing. Now if I click on it, we're in the favorites page, but we haven't created it, and trust me, it's going to be very, very simple. So if I go on over here to favorites, and inside of this div, I'll first of all take our favorites and GF over here. Favorites state will come from this context API, and then we're going to be creating a new state for our favorite GIFs, where we will, fetch and store all of our favorite GIFs. And simply, it's going to be very, very simple, just like earlier. We're going to be fetching our favorite GIFs by using gf.gifs function. We can provide it with this favorites, like whatever favorites array that we have with all of the IDs, and it will give us the exact GIFs. And let's import use effect as well. And now we have all of our favorite GIFs inside of this variable or state, you can say, right? And simply inside of this div, I'll just give it a class name of margin top of 2, and inside this div I'll have a span tag with the class name of faded text, and then inside of it I'll say my favorites. Let's see if we can see this here. Yep, my favorites. And simply, just like earlier, we have done this 100 times by now, I guess. Not really. So yeah, we can see inside the div we have given this UI or the styling that we've given inside of our homepage as well, and just render our favorite GIFs by using this GIF component. And now, yep, we have our favorite GIFs rendering over here. Great. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this app. Like, if you want, you can go on and add more features. You can go on and explore that code sandbox and try to explore what all the features that you can add to it. If you click on stickers, it will render the stickers and all. You can probably go to favorite GIFs and you can add the remove from favorite functionality as well, and you can just use the same function that we have created. If you want, you can add pagination inside of our homepage over here, like infinite scrolling. And what is this issue? This gap in the bottom. Oh, we have this semicolon over here. Let's remove this. If you want, you can add infinite scrolling over here as well. And I've explained the infinite scrolling in my front-end interview preparation course as well. So you can click the link in the description down below to check it out. And now let's go on and host our app on Hostinger. So if I go back to the Hostinger dashboard, I'll show you how simple it is to host a React.js app inside of it. So we have this roadsidecoder.in domain, right? Let's say if I want to create a subdomain, if I go to domains over here and click on subdomains, you can see I've already created a domain over here. Let's create a new domain by the name of GIPHY.roadsidecoder.in. Right? So if I click on create, this has created it, and it has created a new folder with the name of GIPHY. So let's see. Inside of my file manager, if I go over here, inside of the public HTML, we have this GIPHY folder, and we can, whatever code that we put inside of this GIPHY folder will be hosted in GIPHY.roadsidecoder.in. Now, if I wanted to host it directly on roadsidecoder.in, we would just paste our code over here, but we want to host it inside of this GIPHY.roadsidecoder.in. So now I'll go back to my app and go to my terminal. Let's kill the server, and I'll say npm run build, and it will build a production grade copy of our application inside of a dist folder over here. So let's wait for it. So you can see it's building for production, and that's it. Our production build is done. Let's go and reveal in File Explorer. There we go. We need to take all of the code inside of it and bring it to our file manager. Okay, let's go back to my file manager and let's delete this file. We're not going to be needing this. Let's click on upload. Click on, and I've opened my GIPHY clone folder and click on this dist and upload. Upload. Okay, we have this folder. Let's just, and actually we don't want to create a dist folder, so I'll just copy everything inside of it, and let's say move files to one step back right over here. Right, so, and let's get rid of this dist now. And yeah, I think this should do it. Let's open a new tab and try to go to GIPHY.roadsidecoder.in and press enter. Amazing, our website is live. Let's try to, go and check the responsiveness. Great, it's working flawlessly. We can click on over here and select any category. We can click on any GIF. We can favorite it, go to favorite GIFs as well. Let's try to search something here. Let's say JavaScript and click on search. All right, our complete app is functional and working flawlessly. So great. If you like this video, definitely check out my front-end interview preparation course from the link in the description down below. It is the only course that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interviews.